And welcome back. We are continuing on with our 2024 NCAA Indoor Preview. This is video 2, focusing on the distance athletes. And we have a great year with our distance athletes coming up, I believe. We have so much depth in so many returning champions, so many great high level performers. And I think this will be a really banner year for our distance runners. And we'll start with the shortest event on the women's side, and we'll work our way up to the longest that's competing indoors. And then we'll switch over to the men, just like we did within our previous video of our sprinters and hurdlers. So first up, we'll look at the 800-meter run. And what a great year we had last year. And the fact that we have 3 returning star athletes is sort of a huge highlight. You know, the first event we're looking at 800, we have Michaela Rose of LSU, Royson Willis of Stanford, and Juliet Whitaker of Stanford. Yes, Stanford has 2 very talented 800-meter runners in Royson Willis and Juliet Whitaker, both who are capable of running not only sub 2 minutes, but are capable of winning the national title, which is why they're being mentioned here. I think Michaela Rose of LSU kind of stands on her own. LSU known for their great 800-meter runners along with their sprinters. Michaela Rose is just sort of that next plug in the engine and had a very strong outdoor season as a freshman in the 800, as one of our top outdoor returnees. And then we look at Royson Willis, who is the other top returnee. Juliet Whitaker, who kind of, I don't want to say took a backseat, but she was sort of second behind Royson Willis. And we may see Juliet Whitaker transition more fully to the mile or the 1500 come outdoor season, maybe even this indoor season. It remains to be seen. They're at Stanford. They're being coached by legendary coach J.J. Clark. So they're under great coaching, and he'll put together a phenomenal game plan, I'm sure of it. But I think we can't ignore Michaela Rose and the outstanding season she had last year. And I think she, just along with her team, as we look at LSU, and LSU is a team that seems to be in great position to compete for a team title. They are strong in a number of different areas, not super overpoweringly dominant in sprints like they have been, but this team seems to be capable of scoring in more than one place. And Rose is a big key of that. I think that with her ability to show up in the big meets, we may actually see her pull off the big win of defeating not just the Stanford runners. We may see her really take home the title, which is why I kind of have her listed here first on my outline. I think Michaela Rose is in the strongest position, but we cannot ignore Royson Willis or Juliet Whitaker. Now, transitioning to the mile, we have a big transfer story. And, you know, the transfer portal is all the rage right now in college athletics. It affects football, it seems to be at a greater scale, but track and field, I think, honestly, is not too far behind. We've seen what the transfer portal has done for the University of Florida, for the University of Arkansas, for LSU, for Oregon. It has made those teams more potent national title contenders. And the big transfer news was Olivia Howe, the defending champion, transferring from Illinois, now at Texas. As if Texas needed another championship-style runner to add to their loaded roster. Well, they got it. And in a huge area where they hadn't been as dominant, although strong, because let's not ignore the great distance runs of their men. But the women didn't have a champion, and now they have one in Olivia Howe. And I think she obviously clearly is in the driver's seat with the defending title under her belt. And we're looking for her to really take over in Texas's last year in the Big 12. But we can't ignore Maya Ramsden of Harvard. I think she will do well. She will compete solidly with Howe, but I think, honestly, it's Howe's event to lose. I think she's ready. And being at such a competitive school as Texas, she may step her game up to another level. And then we're going to transition now to the 3,000, which is an event that's more open, you know, not only the 3,000, but potentially the 5,000 somewhat. But focusing on the 3,000, now that we have no Caitlin Tui, who has decided to turn pro instead of remaining at NC State, even though there's NIL deals there, we're still seeing some athletes go pro, specifically because it is an Olympic year. This event is kind of open But there are two names to me that stand out that are very competitive and who look to be in a good position to claim the title and to be the headliner for majority of the season. One would be Celie McCabe of West Virginia, and the other would be Olivia Markusich of Notre Dame. West Virginia and Notre Dame, two big distance program names, specifically Notre Dame, but we're looking for that next kind of big long distance star. And McCabe has really kind of been on the cusp of being amongst that group. She's an elite level runner along with Markusich. So I expect for one of those two women to really kind of take over. But do not be surprised if someone who's not mentioned here kind of takes on late. We've seen that. I am not 100% accurate, but just based on what the data shows and how they performed in the past, I think those two women are in the best position to claim the title. And then in the 5,000 meter run, we have sort of the big name, Parker Valby of Florida. I think that now with Caitlin Tui gone on to the professional ranks, it really just all eyes on Parker. She has been an incredible 5K runner for the University of Florida. Even with the coaching change, it's almost as if the coaching change really benefited her even more. She had such a strong cross-country season. We saw her win that title. She just seems to get better and better as the season goes on, even in the midst of having had some injury challenges while they're down at Florida. She's still a highly competitive athlete, a championship-style runner, someone who just seems to lower her time and break records. Every time we see her compete in a meet, she's doing something that's an all-time or a new record. Parker Valby is really what we would say is that girl right now, or that woman. And then I think her biggest competitor will be Hilda Olamomoy of Alabama. Alabama's distance coach has, of course, transitioned over to Florida last season, and we're seeing it really show well with Parker Valby, but Alabama is still known historically as a great distance program. It's in the South, in the SEC, it's really kind of been three really heavy hitters, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Alabama. They've done such a great job interchangeably with their distance runners. I think Florida is really trying to step into that group, wanting to be the all-around team. Looking at the sort of the Arkansas model that led them to winning all those national titles under Coach McDonald. And Holloway just seems to just be hatching away at that title race. He is going after the national title every chance he gets and doing a great job of it. But I think we can't ignore Olamomoy of Alabama. She will certainly give Valby a run. She's had a great cross-country season. She had a great outdoor season as well. So look for them to really kind of set the tone in that 5K, which to me right now seems to be the premier event on the distance side. Yes, we have those great 800-meter runners. We have a great miler, but I think in regards to depth and the challenge and the opportunity to see a record go away, I honestly think the 5,000 is the event. Probably the most interesting and entertaining event in the distance events this coming season. All right, and let's transition over to the men. And we'll look at the 800 because there we have, again, another returning national champion in Yusuf Bizimana of Texas. Like I had stated earlier when talking about Olivia Howe, Texas has had some pretty solid distance runners, specifically in the middle distance, over the past few years with their men's side. And Yusuf Bizimana is the big name, the king on campus, if you will, that has kind of led this middle distance core. He is an athlete capable of running a 144 outdoor. He's already ran 145 indoor and probably will lower that again this year. Again, it's an Olympic year, so we're expecting those top level performances, and I think he is capable of further improving upon his time now that Will Sumner, who won the outdoor title, has decided to turn pro after just a freshman year. It really looks like all eyes are going to be on Yusuf Bizimana, but I do think he'll receive a challenge from a young man from Penn State by the name of Handel Robin. Penn State just a team, a program that just puts out great 800 runners, great milers. Robin seems to be the next guy in line. And he did this last year as a freshman among the top 3 800-meter runners at the championship meet. He was able to accomplish that feat really as a freshman, and to come back again and he had to sit up under Will Sumner as sort of the king of freshmen, but he wasn't too far behind. I think he's really going to give Busy Mana a run for his money, but I think Busy Mana is that guy. I think he'll be tough to beat. I think he will defend his title. Moving up to the next event, we'll look at the mile, which on the men's side is the deepest event. I am ecstatic, excited, elated, whatever pejorative adjective, whatever you want to use to describe excitement about this event, use it. The mile is absolutely loaded with insane levels of talent. I remember a few years ago, it was such a thing to have a sub 4 minute mile performance. But, last year we had a meet where I believe we had, 16 sub 4 minute miles in one meet. I mean, it's now a foregone conclusion. If you want to qualify to the national championships, you need to run a sub 4 minute mile, perhaps even under sub 3:57. And that's just how talented the milers have become. And the University of Washington has really sort of been the school of that, which is why in this preview, the top 3 names that I have listed for the mile are all teammates. Nathan Green, Joe Waxham, and Luke Hauser, all of Washington. And here's the best part. One of them may ship down to 800, or they may go up to the 3 or 5K. But for now, let's look at where they are in the mile. They are 3 of the best returning performers that we have. This is literally perhaps the deepest program, not just in the country, but probably in our nation's history. We've never had a team this deep in the mile in a long time. The depth is insane. How many men they could have that could qualify for the national championships in this event is just mind-boggling. But I think those 3 men, Nathan Green, Joe Waxham, Luke Hauser, any one of them that could win. I mean, Joe Waxham kind of takes the name. He's the record holder. But you can't ignore Luke Hauser or Nathan Green because they show up in championship meets. They show up at the big moments. So expect for them to do that. But those 3 names are just the 3 big names in the mile. I'm sure there are others, like you have Anas Asai of South Carolina, but I think the guys at Washington are probably just a slight cut above. Asai, yes, he is an all-time great, but when it came to the championship meet, the Washington guys were beating him a couple of times. So he could be looking for redemption himself. I don't want to leave him out. I hate kind of labeling him as a dark horse because he's so talented, but the Washington group is just so dominant and so strong. So we're looking forward to what should be a great mile race this coming season. In the 3K, we have another returning champion in Fuad Masaudi of Oklahoma State. Although he did not have the sort of, begin to the end of the season that he would like early in December, but I still think Masaudi is just the preeminent 3K runner. He really performs well at championship meets. You saw that in the DMR last National Indoor Championship. You saw it in the 3K, obviously. This is a very talented runner who I think will just continue that championship level. I think he will get better, but I don't think he is, to me, the biggest favorite as a defending champion. I just think he is a favorite because I think someone behind him, namely Drew Bosley of Northern Arizona, will certainly give him a run for his money. And who knows, Nico Young, his teammate, may also step down because Nico Young normally is running the 5K, but who's to say Nico Young doesn't run the 3K and give him a challenge? Nico Young is a very capable runner. We haven't seen him win that title yet, which this could be the opportunity for him to do so. And speaking of Nico Young, his name is mentioned as one of the guys I have as a competitor for the 5K. But I think we can't ignore the cross-country champion and a guy who's being headlined here, Graham Blanks of Harvard. I mean, a Harvard man, it's so good to see the Ivy Leagues back in it. We know that they were out in 2021 and also, I believe, 2022, which, kind of unfair and made it very difficult for them to compete. But we're looking at, some very, very, very talented runners coming out of the Ivy League. And Graham Blanks is sort of the cream of the crop as, the cross-country champion, a guy who's happily willing to run out of his mind. And he already began his indoor season on a high note, running earlier at Boston. Just expect for him to continue on the great season. Him, like Parker Valby, is kind of the star of the moment. He really had a great cross-country championships. He looked phenomenal in that run. Even if he says he ran out of his mind, he still was great. But a guy that's really going to give him a challenge and who's also being coached well is Kai Robinson of Stanford. Stanford, not mentioned a whole lot here on the men's side, even though they should be. They're going to be competitive in every distance event, specifically the longer distance where they have a lot of depth. Stanford is just, a solid program. J.J. Clark is doing such a phenomenal job returning them back to the national stage and making them more nationally competitive. Expect for Stanford to really do well, and don't be surprised if Kai Robinson himself moves around. But Stanford has a lot of real good talent, but I think Kai Robinson is sort of their top guy. We won't do a DMR preview here. Again, I want to see what's available. We'll look at it around mid-season. Early predictions is that Stanford and Washington will have a strong team, but we can't ignore a lot of the other great distance programs like an Oklahoma State, like an Ole Miss, Arkansas, my neck of the woods, University of Michigan. You can't ignore those great programs. I think a lot of them will do well. They have a lot of talent returning, but it remains to be seen what could happen. But I think we're in for a really good indoor season with our distance runners like the sprints. But I think there are two events we want to keep our eyes on. On the women's side, it's the 5K, and on the men's side, it's the mile. Though both events seem to be loaded with talent and with star power. Look forward to it. Enjoy your day.